surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Villano. I am glad you are here tonight. It has been an absolutely crazy week. It's only been a week. It feels like it's been a lot longer than that. Let's see, we got snow outside. We have people being evicted from their houses at record rates, which we already predicted was going to be happening. And we have prisoner swaps for a basketball player for an international arms dealer. I mean, you can't make this stuff up if we tried, but we will attempt here to maybe you hear me a little bit better now. Absolutely craziness. What is going on out in the world today? But like I said, when you elect a clown, you expect a circus. And that seems to be what we're getting. We're getting a hell of a circus going on around here. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves. For those of you who are new to the show, I am Joe Villano. I'm your host, your guiding light through this kind of craziness that's going on. And we're going to break down and we're going to talk about the long-term effects this means for Americans traveling overseas. Because everyone's talking about this Brittany thing. They're talking about the Marine, excuse me, talking about the Marine, why he wasn't there, why he wasn't brought home also. And listen, this has everything to do with politics and what boxes the prisoner checks off is basically what happened here. But what they don't realize is that this has much bigger ramifications for not only Americans, but especially if you're a celebrity in this country, or you're a high-profile liberal in this country, and you're looking to travel overseas, you should be very, very wary about where you go and how things are conducted. And we'll get into that a little bit more as the show unfolds here. But of course, this show always works best when you are informed and you are involved. So if you want to call in, 203-679-9610. And if you want to email us, straighttalkjv@gmail.com. And of course, if you're on any social media, you could always jump on the message boards. I see it is off and running. Now listen, just to go back to last week. Now apparently we irritated some people. We especially some council people. And you know what? Boo-hoo. Tough for you. And some of them decided to go ahead and jump on and comment after the show was over. I don't know why they just couldn't do it during the show instead of just 3 minutes after the show is over. I'm leaving that number up there because feel free to call in and correct me, because apparently I don't know what we're talking about, even though me and this counselor discussed this specific thing in general together as regarding the doghouse. So the number's up there, 203-679-9610. If you think that anything we are saying here on this show is incorrect and you would like to correct the record, by all means, feel free to call in. Don't jump on 3 minutes after the show is over and sit there and try to put comments in the different spots, because you will be called out for it. Don't be a wuss. Don't be a wimp. Go ahead and call in, because nothing we talked about last week was incorrect. And like we said, and this is all in regards to the doghouse. The doghouse received $150,000 from the rescue funds so they could renovate their building. Taxpayers' money should never be used for stuff like that, ever. It just also happens to be the unofficial hangout of the Democratic Party. And you don't think that we as citizens are smart enough to put two and two together? Really? And like we discussed, and again, I discussed this with that council person also, just because you could doesn't mean you should. Just because they check all the boxes doesn't mean you should give them the money. At some point, you have to use some common sense. Now, I get it. A lot of these people that are on the committee for the rescue funds, they just want the money gone so they don't have to do it anymore. So they'll approve anything. And that's not what you're hired to do. That's not what you're elected to do. That's not what you're appointed to do. You're appointed to be a good steward of our tax dollars. And if you don't want to do that, if you are too worried about your precious time and you don't want to be bothered with it, then get off the damn committee and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to make bullshit decisions like that, you're going to be called out on it. And again, I don't care what party you're part of. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. There's right and wrong. Giving $150,000 to the doghouse so they can renovate their building, the inside, is nonsense. In no way is that helping the citizens of this city, especially when they are struggling to provide housing, as we're going to talk about, as they're scared to death about where their next meal's coming from. And if you look at on Center Street, where they have the Connecticut Food Bank that comes down, the long lines that were there this week, that's what people care about. That's where people, if you want to help somebody, go help them. Not your political buddies. But that's where we're at. And again, this is both sides of the aisle. And this is straight talk. We don't, like I said, we don't throw shade for anybody. And if you're condoning this, then you should not be in the position you're in. And that's the plain and simple. Again, I don't care what party you're on. If you believe that is correct, you are not a good steward of the taxpayers' money. And therefore, you should not be in the position. That is my opinion. This is ridiculous. Again, and don't come on 3 minutes after the show ends and start peppering the comments when you had every opportunity to jump in on the show. I would respect you more if you called in and stated your opinion to the people so they could hear it coming out of your mouth. I know I would sure to hell respect it more, whether you're right or wrong. But to do it 3 minutes after the show over, I found was pretty cowardly and pretty pathetic. And then tell us we don't know what we're talking about. We know damn well what we're talking about, and we should call you. No, you should be calling us. You should be reaching out to your constituents as much as possible. You notice most of them have vanished from social media because they don't want to hear from the people. It's quite pathetic. But this is what we were talking about last week, where, listen, we have politicians that have no balls. I hate to be so frank about it. They're all a bunch of wusses, every single one of them. And they don't want to be held accountable for the decisions they make. But that's what we do here. We hold people accountable for decisions they make, whether right or wrong. We don't have to agree with you. But don't sit there and say we don't know what we're talking about. We know exactly what we're talking about. So now that we got that done, and again, it's up there, 203-679-9610. You're more than welcome to call in anytime you like. Even if we jump to a different discussion, feel free to call in. We could revisit this. We could circle back around to any issue you want to talk about. So, of course, most of you have already heard about this ridiculous prisoner exchange that has happened this past week. And the United States, well, let me rephrase that. Does anyone know what the U.S. ambassador who picks these people up says when they pick them up? Let me just read to you what is customarily said to every prisoner that is picked up by a U.S. ambassador from the State Department when they are released. Excuse me. So here's what's said. Brittany, my name is Ambassador, and at this time it was Roger Carson's. I'm with the U.S. State Department of State, and on behalf of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and Secretary of State Tony Blinken, I'm here to take you home. Now that's what he tells every single person that he picks up during a prisoner exchange. That statement right there. Now, that decision to release them is strictly made by one person, that's Joe Biden. He has to sign off on everything. And he felt in all of his wisdom and his foreign policy that he thought it was a good trade to get the WNBA star, Brittany Gardner, and trade her for an international arms dealer, Victor Boot. Now, if anyone doesn't know who Victor Boot is, have any of you ever watched the movie Lord of War? If you have not, I highly suggest you go and watch that movie, because that is who they traded her for. Now, a lot of people are coming back and forth saying, well, what about the Marine? What about the Marine? Listen, I wouldn't give up either of them. I wouldn't trade for either of them for Victor Boot. Victor Boot is one of the most dangerous people on the face of the earth. This man is single-handedly responsible for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives lost in wars dating all the way back to the 80s. And do you think that Putin wants him back so that he can go into retirement? If you believe that, you're as dumb as Joe Biden himself. Putin wants him back because he needs someone to arm the new mercenaries and the new army that the Russian government can't have their fingerprints on. Right now, Russia is going to desperate measures to salvage what is happening in Ukraine. Right now, Putin knows he cannot beat Ukraine with the official Russian army. And what he is going to do is use Victor Bout to arm other militias, other mercenaries, to go into Ukraine and do things that official Russians are not allowed to do. That is the only reason why Victor Bout was traded to go back to Russia. And we gave up Victor for a basketball, an NBA. I can't even call her a WNBA star because I never even heard of her until she got arrested. What are the problems I see with Americans? Listen, I don't travel overseas for a reason. You know, and people always, well, you know, we're going to go to Mexico. We're going to go to, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Listen, I have a mouth. I know I would get myself into trouble because, again, the world is not like the United States. I think a lot of people take for granted, the way of life here in America. And they think that because they're Americans and we have special rule, we have certain rules over here, that applies to everywhere in the world. And it doesn't. Every country has their own rules, and you are to follow those rules when you go there. And when you don't, you are held accountable for that. Again, accountability is out the window. But apparently, if you check certain boxes, the United States government will go to the ends of the earth to get you back. Craig, I don't see who cares about who the president was when the Marine was arrested. No one's saying that we want the Marine back. If the Marine did something that was illegal over there, he's serving his time. You don't see me sitting here bitching and complaining that the Marine's not back. I'm saying I wouldn't, if you just heard what I just said, obviously you're not paying attention. I said I wouldn't trade Victor Bout for either of them. I wouldn't trade him for either of them. Serve your time and then come home. But people think that they could go to other countries and do whatever they want. And that's not the way it works. But this president has really set a very bad precedent. And I tell you what, if I'm a liberal, if I'm a famous liberal, I'd be very, very wary when I go overseas now. Because Joe Biden has just told every single country that doesn't like us that if a celebrity comes over there, if a sports star comes over there, detain them. If you have violent criminals that are locked up here, detain them. We'll trade them. We'll trade anyone you want to have our precious celebrities back, or our precious sports stars, as they would call them. Apparently, if you're a military person or you're a regular Joe Schmo, we don't care about you. You're not making headlines. You're not making headlines. If I'm a celebrity, a liberal celebrity, I'm not leaving this freaking country. Because any country could get you on any trumped up charge and put you in prison until America's ready to exchange some more terrorists. And that's what we let go. We let go a terrorist. Let me rephrase that. Democrats let go a terrorist this week. And any Democrat that turns around to me and says, well, we need to get guns out of the hands of people, you can straight out go F yourself. Because you Democrats and you liberals have lost all ability to turn around and say, guns are the problem. You lost all credibility when you say we shouldn't have ARs. We shouldn't have assault rifles. You lost all credibility with that. Because you let the biggest arms dealer in the world, you let him go for a WNBA basketball player. You thought that her life was more important than the tens of thousands that are going to die because of this trade. And mark my words, there are going to be people who die because of the actions of Joe Biden. And they're going to be Ukrainians. If anyone's pissed at Joe Biden the most, it'll probably be Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, because they know exactly what's going to happen. And I haven't heard people like Chris Murphy. Where's Chris Murphy? He was here in Meriden. He was talking about medical debt. I didn't hear a single word from Chris Murphy, who was the biggest anti-gun advocate in the country. Did anyone hear him say anything about this trade and how bad it was? How it's going to put more guns out on the streets? How it's going to kill more innocent civilians overseas? You didn't hear a peep from Chris Murphy or any other liberal. Because at the end of the day, they don't care. They really don't care what their actions do. I told you, the only things liberals care about is having control. They want control over you. They don't care if they're killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands overseas. They care about getting your guns so that you can't resist against them when they bring tyranny to your door. That's why they want guns out of the hands of Americans. That's the only reason. They want complete control. And if you have a gun, they cannot have control of you because you have an opportunity to fight back. But like I said, the rest of the world, yeah, you're on your own. All the guns you want. That is the America we live in. The hypocrisy is just astounding. So next time you hear a liberal turn around and talk about guns, tell them to shut up because you've lost all opportunity to criticize on it. Because you guys are more than happy, and Craig, it seems like you're extremely excited about it, that you're perfectly happy with Victor Boot being back on the streets. You are part of the problem. And again, elections have consequences. And this is just another reason And another example of what happens when you elect idiots to public office. And hey, we just saw an article in the paper the other day with Governor Lamont. Governor Lamont's coming after guns. He wants to ban ARs in the state. Sorry, Governor, you've lost that ability. You've lost credibility on that because you also have not sit there and come out against this trade. You haven't come out against this prisoner exchange. This is dangerous. Playing this kind of game is dangerous. And Putin is laughing his ass all the way to the bank. And we sit here looking like a bunch of idiots. It is astounding to me. It's astounding that people actually agreeing with this trade. Some people find this as a win for America, and it's just not. And if you're a liberal out there, Craig, please tell me how this is a victory for America. Because I can't see in any way that this is a win for not only America, but for the world in general. Tell me how this is somehow going to be beneficial. It's not. And again, it's just America has egg on their face one more time again. Now, if anyone has not also been paying attention to what's going on in the news, so obviously with everything going on, obviously it was, if you watched the runoff in Georgia, so now we have a 51-49 U.S. Senate. 51 Democrats, 49 Republicans. Well, I tell you, this caught me by surprise. Arizona Senator Christian Simas left the Democratic Party and went independent. Now, most people will hear that and be like, "Well, that's not a big deal." What does that mean? That has huge ramifications on policy. Because now Republicans take over the House in January. Now you will have a 50-49-1 as a breakdown in the Senate. Now, whether Kristen stays as an independent, or is she going to caucus with the Republicans as an independent? So if anyone doesn't remember, Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. In case people, so people can kind of get a reference of what I'm talking about. Bernie Sanders is not elected as a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is technically an independent, but he actually caucuses with the Democrats. So I have not heard where Kirsten is actually going to land. Is she going to stay as an independent and caucus by herself? Or is she going to join the Republicans? Because obviously she's not going to be with the Democrats. Craig, you don't need to have a source in the State Department or an intelligence agency to see what's going to happen. Just use friggin' common sense. For once in your life, just use common sense. It is not rocket science on what's going to happen. When you have the Lord of Death, now a free man, you have to ask yourself why. And even you, being the hard liberal that you are, must turn around and be like, huh, no, that's not straight. That's a strange thing. So again, so this is going to be very interesting because it will determine on whether or not the Democrats will have, obviously, right now they currently do. They have all the committees. So having committee chairships really does mean something. Now, if you asked me if we were going to be talking about this kind of scenario, I would have thought Manchin from West Virginia would have been the defector. But apparently, Kirsten has been watching what's going on in Arizona and is like, I need to save my ass for my election coming up. So therefore, I'm going to do this. She's pulling a John McCain, really. Except John McCain never left the Republican Party. But in some ways, he left the Republican Party. I think that's what she's doing. Is it a smart political move? I guess we'll find out in the end. I think it is. So keep your eyes out on that. We'll be keeping an eye on that and seeing what she does and seeing how this changes the balance of power in the Senate. Because if you get Republicans with power in the Senate also, it'd be very, very interesting to see how things play out in the next 2 years. So I thought I'd throw that by you in case you guys did not see that. Obviously, we were talking about it at the beginning of the show. And again, I predicted this. Again, this is just another prediction that, again, because Craig, you could just use common sense. You could just use common sense and understand when you see things happening and you look at them long term, you can see the effects they're going to have. So right now, up at the state capitol, people are freaking out over a new study that has come out with the amount of evictions as of November of we've already exceeded what's been in 2017, which was the highest. And they're all asking themselves, well, how did this happen? And I just sit here and go, what do you mean, how did this happen? How the hell do you think this happened? Look at all the things that have happened over the last 3 years. You turn around and you told them they didn't have to pay their rents anymore. We're going to give you money. And what did people do? They kept the money and they used it for ridiculous things. And they weren't paying their rents. And then, when the pandemic ended, landlords were like, where's our money? And they didn't give it to them. So they evicted them. That's one part of why you're having record evictions. Is that people that got money that were supposed to be used to pay their rents, they didn't because they knew that at the time, landlords couldn't evict them. So why pay for something when there's no risk of you losing it at that time? And well, we won't worry about it until, this whole ban on evictions is lifted. And then they figured we were going to get bailed out again. And that didn't happen. Knock that with record inflation. We saw home evaluations go through the roof, especially if you're a multi-family house. Multi-family houses, dwellings in this city went up anywhere from 40 to 120%. We talked about this during appeals time. Because remember, I'm on the Board of Assessment Appeal. I saw the numbers. And multi-family dwellings were the hardest hit with the revaluations. What do you think was going to happen when you jack these taxes up thousands of dollars a year? You think that the landlord was going to take it on the chin again? The landlord just took it on the chin for the last 2 years by not being able to evict anyone. But yet they still had to pay their mortgages, even when these people weren't paying their rents, even when the government gave them money to do so. Do you think that landlords are just going to sit by and say, you know what, it is what it is? Most landlords are not big corporations. They're mom and pops who just happen to own another house or take up an investment. what do you think they were going to do? They were going to have to jack up the rents, and we talked about this in great length months ago. So couple that with, again, higher utility costs, higher food costs, all these things, higher gas costs, all these things that people need to live on a daily basis. It's all gone through the roof. What do you think was going to happen? Exactly what we predicted was going to happen happened. Again, this is economics 101. It's not even really economics. This is just life 101. And again, state officials are shocked and dismayed at what's going on, when they were part of the problem that caused it. Again, just because we could do something doesn't mean we have to. The state could have easily turned around and said, listen, these revaluations are totally out of control. Let's put this stuff on hold. And legislators could have taken action to do so. But they didn't. And now they're trying to pin this on the landlords, as this is the landlords being unreasonable. No, they're the only ones being reasonable. It was the government that was being unreasonable and expecting these landlords to pick up all this back debt. Again, they've been paying their mortgages on these properties for the past 2 years, and they haven't missed their payments. At least they shouldn't have. Or maybe some of these people are going to turn around and say, forget it. We're just going to let the house go. And then you'll see foreclosures going up, which again is something that we've been tracking and is on the rise. This is the first step. This is the first step. I told you, this is a triple threat. This is the perfect storm. And we are going to see it. And I said again, and I hate the fact that I'm right. But this is only the beginning of it. Evictions are the first part. When they're not getting paid still, you're going to start to see a lot of foreclosures happen. And then what have we even seen in the city? In fact, I think someone even did a story on it. I think the Record Journal did a story on it, with the uptick in out-of-state investment groups that are buying up properties left and right in the city. You can't stop them from doing it. You can't stop these investment groups from doing it. This is only the first piece of the puzzle, I'm sorry to say. It's going to get worse from here. This is just the first domino to go down. Again, go back and listen to our show back in February through May. We talked about this in great detail. Evictions first, foreclosures, taxes, and then the whole bottom falls out. That's the way it works. That's the way it's always worked in society, economically. The city of Maryland, the state of Connecticut is not the first to deal with this. Hell, even the United States, I could go into the new PAC. If anyone didn't know that the president of China is currently in Saudi Arabia working on a deal, do you know that they're making a new currency? We talked about it about a month ago. We talked about it even before that. I said, watch out. The United States is at risk of losing the dollar as the world currency. And when that happens, all this debt we have, the $31 trillion of debt we have, is going to come back to destroy this country. And China is in Saudi Arabia right now, working on a new currency that's backed by gold and graphite and silver, on real tangible things. Unlike the United States, where our dollar is backed by debt. People need to be very, very careful and paying attention to what's going on. It may not happen in my lifetime, but in Junior's lifetime or Tucker's lifetime, yeah, it's going to happen. And they're going to have to deal with it. These are things, again, that are very predictable just by watching and being informed of what your government is doing now. Listen, the digital currency is never going to happen. Digital currency is never going to, and the fall of FTX is a prime example of why digital currency will never come to fruition. And if you look at digital currency actually has nothing backing it. It's even worse. It's not even debt. That's not even backed by debt. That's just a promise and a prayer. So that I would again, digital currency, cryptocurrencies, I stay away from. And on top of it, if you talk about digital currencies, that's even more dangerous than anything else you could possibly imagine. Because remember, what do liberals care about the most? Control. When you have a digital currency, who controls that? You say the wrong thing. You do the wrong thing. Boom. We shut your currency off. We cut your money off. You say the wrong thing. You go to an area you're not supposed to go to. Boom. We cut you off. Listen, technology is the greatest thing that could ever happen to a society. It could also be the most destructive thing that could happen to a society. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. We can go down that rabbit hole on another night if you like. Just like when we're talking about AI and how great AI is. It's also a very scary thing when you look at it. So we'll get into those things. They want people to be microchips. Hey, listen, if they could have their way, they probably would. So don't be surprised. We'll be looking at like Demolition Man. If anyone's never seen the movie Demolition Man, where they chip you. So, but listen, like I said, we talked about this with the evictions months ago. Unfortunately, it's going to get worse. And like I said, this is the first domino where the next one's going to be foreclosures, which we're already seeing on the rise. And then after that comes people who just can't pay their taxes. And you start seeing a lot more tax levies. And you're going to see a lot more tax sales, which go through foreclosure. It's just the way it is right now. Because the government does not seem to want to get out of their own way. And they sure as hell don't want to get out of the citizens' way or the free market's way, so they can stabilize things the way it should be. So we'll see how that goes. To a little local news, and this is something that most people have not been talking about. That I have heard whispers of it over the last year or so, but it looks like it's cleared its first hurdle, and they want to put another car wash in the city of Meriden. And it's going to be in the location of a Monticello, the banquet hall over there on Broad Street. Now, whether or not that is a good idea or not, I'm still debating. Listen, if people want to, if they're trying to, they're trying to sell the place, they've been trying to sell it for years. Obviously, they're still running a business out of there. Is a car wash the best thing for it? I mean, we don't get to make that determination, I don't believe. I mean, obviously, we can make the determination as far as the city is concerned, but it faced its first hurdle, got through wetlands, so apparently it's gonna probably go to, I think, planning next, or I don't know what it's zoned for over there. I gotta imagine it's zoned commercial 1, which would allow them to do whatever they want. But I mean, is a car wash really the what Meriden needs? I think we already have 3, if I remember. Yeah, so we have 3. We have the classic car wash, we have the new Flash, and then we have the South Meriden one. Oh, 4. And then we have the one on Broad Street. That actually was right down the street from this, at that gas station. So we have 4 car washes already in the city. So I mean, maybe if it goes to planning, does planning, do we need another car wash? Is this really the best thing for Meriden? Now, I was made aware today. Again, most people, if you don't know, I'm not from Meriden. I did not grow up here. So a lot of the past things that were here downtown specifically, I had no idea about. And I was at lunch today, and I was told about an old duck pin bowling location here in the city of Meriden, and I'm told that the building is still there. And I heard it was on Grove Street, if any of you remember that. I don't. It's before my time. But I think that would be an awesome thing in the city of Meriden. And again, and it's interesting the conversations I have with people when they sit there and tell me, well, we got nothing for the kids. We got nothing for the kids to do. We have this. We don't have this. So, listen. And I sit there and say this. I look at this from a business perspective. You tell me something that these kids have deserved to have. And I know it sounds a little harsh, but if you look at this, at the adolescents of today, are you telling me that they are, the way they act, they are deserving of anything? I'm sorry. If I'm a business owner who's looking to put something in the city of Meriden, I'm not taking on that liability. The reason why a lot of people do not build things for the teenagers is because these teenagers, most of the teenagers today, and I'm not saying all of them, a bunch of them have no respect for authority or for other people's properties. That is a fact. And the amount of liability that comes with putting a roller skating ring, a duck pin bowling, a Dave and Buster's, is that you have to deal with that, with those elements. And am I willing to risk hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this for kids to come in and gangbang, bring weapons, possibly shoot, or destroy my property? Do you think I'm really going to take that risk? With today's youth? We talk about juvenile delinquency. We talk about juvenile crime. And you want someone to bring something into the city that will attract all these people? I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. I wouldn't do it. Listen, I heard there was a duck pin bowl, and the first thing I thought of is, holy crap, I would love to open that back up. I would love to open that back up. But then my common sense comes back in and my brain starts thinking and going, are you freaking crazy? Are you crazy? And that's how businesses think. Because it is a huge risk. Am I willing to go bankrupt on giving this a shot? Because if it doesn't succeed, it literally is going to bankrupt you. And therefore, it's, again, risk versus reward. It's not worth the risk for the little reward you might get out of it. And I'm sorry, but there are a lot of parents that have done a bang up job on some of these youth. You have a Cheshire. Listen, Cheshire is not Meriden. Cheshire isn't Meriden. Cheshire doesn't have the same problems Meriden has. And again, now you're going to expect a company to sit there and hire security? Takes expense. You would have to get a very, very good deal from the city of Meriden as far as tax breaks in order to make something like that work. You would need huge tax breaks. I'm talking 10-year tax breaks. I'm talking 24 Colony Street tax breaks in order to make something like this happen. Now, like I said before, we're going to end up spending a lot of money downtown in order to bring businesses in. I've said this for years now. Listen, you can't blame Joe Fest for this. You can't blame Joe Fest for not being able to bring in downtown. Listen, when you have a shit show downtown, you're going to get exactly that. You're not going to get anybody to come in. Joe Fest did not make the decision to bring affordable housing downtown. Joe Fest did not do that. Joe Fest did not turn around and say, well, you know, we're not going to have any disposable income downtown. But hey, go fix it. And if you look at the east side, you look at the west side, you even look at the south side towards Wallingford on Broad Street. Things have been coming in. That's where we have been making progress. Now, whether Joe Fest had anything to do with that, I don't know. I don't talk to Joe Fest on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis. I talk to him maybe once a quarter. But when you have, this is what you have to work with. And you can bring in the greatest economic development director in the world. Tell me what you have to work with. Really, the only thing you have to work with here in the city of Meriden is tax breaks. That's the only thing they could offer you. And tax breaks only go so far. That's unfortunate. Because they're not offering you, again, unless you're in South Meriden, you're on the west side or the east side. That's the only disposable income. And again, you've seen everything. There's not really much vacant spots down there. There's no vacant spots there. The vacancy is downtown. The one spot where we spent tens of millions of dollars. Sean, that is exactly what we do. We do. We just support low-income housing. That's it. That's all we do. 16.8%. 16.8% of all housing in Meriden is affordable housing. On average, for a city, is 10%. That's what we do, and they're looking to build more. And they're looking to put more in. But this is what, again, elections have consequences. This is what our elected officials have decided they wanted to do. And this is how they thought, even though every study has gone against it, no matter how many times you show them statistics of cities that have tried this approach and have failed, they thought that they can revitalize downtown by bringing in affordable housing and then give 20-year tax breaks to a company that's already getting federal funds, getting state funds, getting low interest loans and grants, and Section 8 vouchers, which is guaranteed money, and then decide to give them even more by giving them tax breaks when they did not need them. And yet, 5 years later, we're still empty downtown. Now, if anyone doesn't see that as a failure of our elected officials, I don't know what the hell they need to see to show that they have no idea what they're doing. They're not going to build on the green. That's not going to happen. Even Democrats are now against that, even though our majority leader didn't even know it was even thought of, even though every plan from inception has showed that we were going to have that. But speaking of downtown, I don't usually comment too much on things going on as far as, certain groups and stuff. But this one did catch my eye. And I don't usually go on Meriden Talks very often, but I was on my way back from New York this morning. And I happened to see this pop up on my screen. A post from Linda Linda, she's on the show, of course. She's always here. And it was about Yule Fest. And Yule Fest, again, I've never been to it. Just for full disclosure, it's been going on for 3 years now. I haven't been to any one of them. But apparently there was a post today about the lack of enthusiasm about Yule Fest this year. Now, I didn't even know they moved it to 3 days. I always thought it was 1 or 2 days. It was the weekend. And I'm going to give a little bit of leeway to Carrie and her group, even though from the way that her letter is surrounded, it seems like she's the only one that does anything. Apparently everybody else does absolutely nothing. So 5 years? So they've been doing it 5 years. I haven't been to any of them. So I just have no desire to go downtown for it. But listen, I hate when people go on Facebook and bitch and complain about people just not doing this, not doing that. So this was no different. And I thought that some of the the reason why I bring it up, because some of the responses from certain people really caught my eye. And then I started putting two and two together, and I realized I did read Joey's post, which is why I say this, and which is why, we're even commenting on it at all. Because again, now listen, me and Joey over the years have disagreements on politics. I think we're on two separate parts of the aisle. But I think as far as knowing what Meriden is doing and the leadership in Meriden and some of the players in these groups like the Yule Fest committees and stuff like that, I think me and Joey are pretty much dead on accurate on what these people are. And to me, it's not about, to me, it seems that these people aren't doing it for the people of Meriden. They're doing it to benefit themselves and to pat themselves on the back. That's how I feel. I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't know Carrie Teal. I don't know Dave Grzycki all that well. I don't know their committee, whoever they have. But what I can do is read pieces from everybody's comments and start to put together a pretty good, and then from my own personal experience, start to put things together. And I've been pretty good at it. And I look at it this way. One, I'll give her credit that there's no way they could have known that, well, I guess they could have, that the state finals for football was going to be this weekend. And that the game was going to be at 2:30. Now, also at the same time, you shouldn't be getting on Facebook and bitches complaining that nobody showed up when 400 people did come. You should be praising the 400 people that did come and making sure you work on those 400 people. And we talk about it all the time on this show. Work within your circle of influence. And those 400 people, if they reached out to 10 people each, now you got 4,000 people. Again, you have inflation and you got people struggling on times coming, on money right now. That's going to play into it. And honestly, when you have no income, first of all, you got no disposable income as it is downtown. But then even on the outskirts, people are struggling. And they're just not going to come out at all. And people are feeling down on their luck, and people are feeling a little depressed. Last thing they want to do is come down to a Yule Fest, to a festival. But Joey's comments that, Dan, that you referred to was exactly the way I was thinking. And I know that because me and Joey had a conversation about organizations in the city reaching out to the community, reaching out to the businesses in that area to be part of the solution. And for some reason, the city and these groups don't want them to be part of the solution because they don't agree with everything that they believe. And if you disagree on anything, you are ostracized. And I know that to be a fact. Do you know my company has been here for what, 4 or 5 years? Has anyone from the city ever reached out to us? Hey, Joe, how are things going? Do you need anything? No. And listen, I'm damn good friends with the economic development director. I would have to say I'm on pretty damn good terms with some of the people at City Hall. No, they're not going to reach out to you. Because honestly, I don't think they care. That's just my opinion. I don't. Because I don't have the same agenda as they do. Did you see anybody reach out to the businesses saying, hey, rescue funds are here? No, they didn't reach out to the businesses. What? Because they turn around, they put it on their Facebook page? Or they put it on the website? But you had certain politicians going around to certain businesses saying, hey, we got you. We got you. Come fill this out. We got you. Don't worry about it. You're with us. You're with us. It's crazy. And I think that's a big thing. I think most people in this city just want a pat on the back. Look what I'm doing. Look at me. Aren't I awesome? And with any dissension from what they're saying, they will ostracize you not only from that board, but from their website and their Facebook pages. That's not how you build consensus. That's not how you build a coalition to put together a great festival. On top of it, Nobody knows where all that money goes. They've come to me for donations. Tell me where the money goes. Is there a spreadsheet? Is there any kind of filing? Let the people see it. Let the corporations see it. Listen, I don't give money to anybody. I don't know where my money's going. I work damn hard for the money I make. The people that work with me work damn hard. I'm not going to go ahead and take that money and that profit and give it to an organization that I don't know where it's going. And listen, I donate thousands of dollars every year, probably tens of thousands of dollars every year. But I know where all of it is going because that's me being responsible. And I think Joey was dead on with what's going on here. And this dictatorship of self-indulged people are run much deeper than the Yule Fest board. It's heavy in City Hall. Joey, kudos to you, buddy, because I know you're still going to be ostracized just as much as you were before, probably even a little bit more now. But you, sir, were dead on accurate in your post. It's time to put the egos away and try to work together to get things done. I find myself, I like working with people who disagree with me even more than working with people who who disagree with me. And I have been doing it the whole time since I've been in the city of Maryland. Listen, I know I'm outnumbered. I know. And there's times where I'm the lone conservative and the lone Republican. But we still got things done. The Golf Commission is a prime example of that. I was the only Republican on the Golf Commission. But we all worked well together because we didn't have egos. It's just we all wanted to do what was best for the golf course. And it didn't matter what your thought was. We all had discussions on things, and we gave a little, we took a little. And at the end of the day, we did what was best. That's how you get things done. And I think that's what Joey is saying you need to do with this Yule Fest board. I think it's time to shake up that Yule Fest board all the way around. I think maybe it's time. After 5 years, maybe it's time for Kerry to step down and let somebody else take it over. I don't see anything wrong with that. But I just found that interesting. Again, I don't usually comment too much on that stuff, but this one really caught me by surprise. And again, I hate when people sit there and bitch about that kind of stuff. Well, apparently the way her thing says, her thing writes, apparently she's the only one that does anything. And anyone who knows me knows, do not say certain words to me when you're talking about groups, especially when you're the leader of them. I and me. And I think, Sean, you could probably contest to this. I despise more than anything in this world is when people use the words I and me when it comes to groups, when it comes to being part of a group, a committee, an organization. Because you, me, and I are not anywhere in that organization. It is us. It is we. It is our. Because we are all in this together. Even this show, I try never to say I or me because this show is about us. It is us that are going to work together to get things done. It is not my resolution. It is not anything. It's what are we going to do to get this over the finish line? And again, we've done very well on this show, even though with all the people that are naysayers and that want to bitch and complain about it, and the council people who sit there and say, oh, he's just a hothead. He doesn't want to talk about anything. He's this, he's that. He does that. Oh, I love the temperament. But they all listen to the show. They all listen. Because they know what we're saying is right. And they will be deathly afraid if we get the audience that we need to get things done. But it's just pure craziness to me. So that's my rant for the dictatorships of the city of Meriden, which there are a lot of them. I would just sit there and tell you guys this as a little, just my personal opinion and my little gift of appeal to you to put your egos aside, and maybe it's time for some of you to step aside and let some new blood take over. And maybe you guys could get the Yule Fest back on track next year, and it could be a success like it was the first couple of years. But we'll see what happens. Guys, with that, I thank you so much. Enjoy this snow out there. I guess we're supposed to get 3 to 4 inches. We'll see what happens with school tomorrow. I'm predicting, if anything, a late start tomorrow, if nothing more. We might even see cancellations tomorrow. But we'll wait to find out. So I like to spend a nice day with the kids tomorrow. That'd be a sweet thing. I love snow. I don't like working out in the snow. I definitely don't want to drive in the snow. As far as a fuel truck, I don't want driving in the snow. Even though I did just have a yacht come into to Essex today. Hopefully, I'm praying that they don't want fuel tomorrow. I'm hoping they're going to hang out here for a couple days. But unfortunately, it don't freeze on the water. And it definitely doesn't, they don't have to worry about ice. But we'll see what happens. Until then, guys, next week, we'll dive more into this stuff, and we'll see what else is going on as news happens throughout the week. But until then, I love each and every one of you. Thank you, as always, for joining us here. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I'm interested to see who's going to jump on now 3 minutes later and start criticizing us about something. That's always fun. It's always fun to watch. But we'll see what happens. Until next week, guys, I love each and every one of you. Take care of yourself and each other. God bless you, as always. And, of course, God bless this amazing country of ours. I hope Brittany is realizing how great this country is right now compared to when she left it. I hope she has a new appreciation for it. And if she doesn't, well, that's even tells you bigger problems we have in this country. Until next week, guys, love you and good night.
Emanation and a million faces formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak and believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from the cold dead chest.
This It's our resistance. You can't resist.